Good morning, everyone. We're going to get started because we know that we have a really tight schedule today, and people should trickle in. We know that the weather is not good, and Atlanta traffic and the rain is terrible. But we're going to get started. My name is Nakia Green Young, and welcome to the Black Women in Public Policy Symposium in the South. I am so excited. I'll probably come up and talk a little later when more people get here, but I'm really, really excited to see the faces that are here. We've been working on this for a while, and I am the Domestic Policy Coordinator at the W.E.B. Du Bois Southern Center for Studies in Public Policy at the illustrious Clark Atlanta University. So we decided that we needed a space for Black women to discuss public policy that impacts us and figure out some solutions to bad public policy or policy that we need to make improvements to. So that's what today is all about. We will be working to discuss public policy, talk about the solutions, and in the end, there will be a whole summary of this day where we can make policy recommendations. I want to introduce you to the Executive Director of the Policy Center, the Du Bois Policy Center, and that is Dr. Joseph Jones. He's going to come and bring greetings, and then later on throughout the day, we'll have some other people from the university and our co-sponsors come bring greetings. Thank you, and we'll get started now. Dr. Jones?
Good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests, activists, scholars, advocates, welcome to the inaugural Black Women in Public Policy Symposium hosted by the W.E.B. Du Bois Southern Center in Public Policy in the department of the Dr. Mack Henry Jones Department of Political Science at Clark Atlanta University. It is with great pleasure and honor that I stand before you today as Executive Director of the Du Bois Policy Center, dedicated to advancing scholarship, dialogue, and action in the realm of public policy, particularly as it pertains to the experiences and the contributions of Black folks in the American and global South. I want to take a moment of personal privilege and to thank Mrs. Nakia Green Young for her leadership for bringing this vision into reality. So please put your hands together for Ms. Nakia Green Young. This symposium marks a significant milestone in our collective journey towards freedom, justice, and liberation in these United States. For too long, the voices, experiences, and leadership of Black women have been marginalized and overlooked in the public policy arena. Yet we know that Black women have been at the forefront of social and political change, advocating for justice, and driving progress in communities across the South and beyond. Today, we come together to celebrate the resilience, the brilliance, and the power of Black women in public policy. We gather to amplify their voices, to elevate their stories, and to honor their contributions to our society. Through engaging discussions, insightful presentations, and meaningful connections, we aim to deepen our understanding of these unique challenges faced by Black women in the realm of public policy, while also exploring innovative solutions and strategies for building a more just and liberatory future. As we embark upon this journey together, let us be guided by the wisdom of W.E.B. Du Bois himself, who famously declared, "But what of Black women? I most sincerely doubt if any other race of women could have brought its finest up through such a devilish fire." As we meditate on the symposium's theme, What American Democracy Owes Black Women, let us recognize that liberation for Black women is central to the liberation to us all. Let us commit ourselves to dismantling systems of oppression, amplifying marginalized voices, and building a more inclusive and equitable world for the future generations. Once again, welcome to the first annual Black Women in Public Policy Symposium. May our time together be transformative, inspiring, and impactful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Jones. We're going to get started with our first panel today. And our first panel is, hold on so I can read, why centering the need of Black women in the South equals good policy for everyone. We're going to have our moderator come up, and she's going to introduce our panelists. Come on, everybody. If you want to stand here, or if that's your seat. Okay.
Hello, my name is Keisha Brown. I am the president of an organization, Alliance for Black Lives. And our panelists today, we have Amanda Hollowell. She is the managing director of at When We All Vote. And Ms. Kim Schofield. She is the Georgia State House Representative. Hello? Okay, so I guess I'll go with you first, Ms. Schofield. And the first question that we have is, let's talk about economics. From equal pay to assessing funding to pay for higher education or to start a business, tell us how creating policy to fill the needs of Black women would benefit everyone.
Thank you, and thank you for having me here today. Well, you know, in the Georgia General Assembly, we understand, and everyone understands, that there's so many inequities when it comes to policy and economics. We know that on the scale, white women earn more money than Black women, so we won't rehash the problems. Policy is important because policy drives everything. So when we look at the inequities in policy, what we have to realize is that we have created a scale here that, how many of you know that the Georgia minimum wage is $5.15? And this has been going on for so long. So there are policies that we put in place at the Georgia General Assembly that often go unnoticed. And those include just minority participation in general. So what we have to continue to fight for is raising the voice for minimum wage. And we work with grassroots organizations, we are advocates, and each year we drop policy that ensures livable wages. And what the advocates have to do is continue to fight. So policies drive how much you not only earn, but how we can be more creative in the space of creating jobs, trainings. We are looking at economic values from little kids, and there's a bill that we now drop the baby bonds, so that we're investing in babies and putting in, you're nodding your head so you understand, we're putting in, setting up, what is the word I'm looking for? I just lost my word. But we're setting up accounts. So we're doing study committees that we're building up wealth and passing on generational wealth. We're looking at how do we sustain through our family real estate. Never let your family lose property. Everything in here is intentional. And so when we're losing property and they're keeping our salaries low, what we have to do is continue to maintain economic growth through our policy. And so that's what we fight for. That's what I fight for, to maintain that balance. And we always look for your voice. I have the power of the pen, you have the power of the voice. So economically, we have to look at the systems, working with not only the businesses and the business models, but we have to continue to find creative, innovative training programs as they try to eradicate and remove D&I. We've got to go and create new ways of sustainability, technology that keeps us not only at the table, but we now have to create tables.
Thank you. I just want to kind of just add a little bit more to this because you did such a wonderful job. You know, we have a problem in Georgia called preemption, which is what really stops local and county governments from being able to raise the minimum wage on their own. And that is, again, handled at the state, which is why she was talking about advocacy, right? And there's little nuances that I don't think we understand that directly impact Black women from closing that racial wealth gap. And I know In a few weeks, you guys are going to hear about Women's Equal Pay Day, which will be March 12th. But Black Women's Equal Pay Day isn't until August. And so we make 63 cents on the dollar to every white man. So it takes us almost more than a year and a half to get up to $1 of earned wealth, or of our rate, compared to a white man. And one of the biggest challenges is, you don't just see this here in Georgia, but you see it here nationally, is not creative thinking around the policies around economics or economic justice in Black women. It's been proven time and time before, if you center your policies around a Black woman's challenges, you will lift up a whole community because of what she represents, who are in her community, and like we can distinctly talk about the poverty line. There's also how do you raise people out of poverty? There's also extreme challenges too with TANF, which is Temporary Assistance Need Funds. That is a racist policy in itself, and it basically harms Black women who are in need at this time. And so I think it's thinking about how we got here, who designed the policy, but then also what are the ways that we as a community can advocate for and talk about. They're not new policies, y'all. They're really not. It's just speaking up more about, so I think our governor always talks about the surplus that we have in Georgia. Where are those surplus dollars going? Why are they going? We don't need another study. We need actual dollars put behind policies so they can be enacted. And those are the biggest things that I really think, when I used to do budget advocacy with Georgia Budget and Policy Institute, that we need to talk about. We can make policy all day long, but if it's a policy with a fiscal note, it needs to be funded, or we don't actually address the things that we say we're addressing.
Right, and I'm just going to add one more thing. And so when we center, and I won't go on, when we center these policies, what the whole goal is to build up a trust fund and to build up, but we're not expending that money on the policies that we need. So we're at a lot of unfunded mandates right now. And so what you're doing is you're building up a trough right here, and you're not spending money. What's good are you building up a big wallet when there are things that we can fund, like maternal mortality and other things? So until we start pushing that button, the money's going to sit there.
Yeah.
Great job. Wonderful. Amanda, did you want to add as to why the TANF was harmful?
So the TANF was supposed to be a good deed by lawmakers to help folks who are having a temporary need for cash dollars and assistance. But as the years gone on, and who designed the policy, again, which would be people who are not of need, they basically created it in a way that creates these blockades. So if I'm in a need and I'm underemployed, let's say, and I'm going to apply for TANF, there's work requirements to it. And they're very strict work requirements. So why would I go out and get a job? I'm obviously in a moment in a need, but now you're telling me I need to go get a job in order to get this money. There's also family caps, and family caps harkens right back to slavery, directly impacts Black and brown women, which is basically saying if you have one child on subsidies or whatever, the child that you're pregnant with cannot qualify for it. So they do family caps, which is awful. And then also there's just a list of other things, which I think now they want to do drug testing in order to receive these funds. And again, that is just built in implicit bias. It's just racist. It's just built in racism. And this is, again, how they keep us in poverty and how they make it harder for folks to, quote, lift themselves by the bootstrap kind of thing.
Thank you for that. Okay, let's go to the second question. Great job, ladies. So with the second question, it says, let's talk about health care, from maternal health and abortion rights to affording basic primary health care. Tell us how creating policy to fill the needs of Black women would benefit everyone.
If you don't go.
So I serve on the health committee for the state. Everything I do is healthcare. I am a person I work for Emory University. I'm a lupus researcher. So when we talk about healthcare in this state and health access, it's not just that we're talking about just a physical health. Healthcare ties into everything, economic health. We talk about physical, financial health. When we talk about access to health care, we're living in a time where there are healthcare deserts. And it's not an urban problem, it's not a rural problem, a suburban problem. Health care is a human right. And so when we look at the totality of what we've done in this healthcare system, if you notice now, the Georgia General Assembly is now setting up a lot of resources to move the healthcare system down to rural health. That's the concentrated area right now, as they're closing hospitals in the metro area. So maternal mortality, you know, we've proven time and time again that fully expanding Medicaid works. I don't care what you call it. You can call it the okie dokie, just expand the daggone thing. We're on camera, so I won't use another word. So that people have access to live a quality of life that they need. We know that the governor has said that he will absolutely not fully expand Medicaid this session. We know that the centering women, that there are more women, we're in 49th in not only maternal mortality, but morbidity as well. So women are dying. And the medical community has said we don't have to have pregnancy-related deaths because there are interventions that can actually address these problems. So it is a way that we can fix these issues. We know that there are healthcare deserts. You see, one way that we're trying to address them is more clinics and urgent care popping up, but we need hospitals. We need more specialties. So when you put and you fully make a community whole, then you start to see a community thrive, and it's not just surviving. We know that in the next 3 years, you'll start to see that pharmacies are starting to close. Let me let y'all in on a little secret. We just discovered that, and I'm just gonna talk about state workers, the reimbursement rate for pharmacies on certain medications, and these are medications like your hypertensive medications. They are reimbursing pharmacies at a rates, and I'm going to say Lipitor, for let's say an average independent pharmacy is getting reimbursed at $1.98 for a pill, whereas your big box store is getting reimbursed $89 for the same pill. And no one was minding that shop. So there have been some things that have gone on now that we're discovering, and guess what we're paying when we go to that store? We're paying that $89. Or we're paying somewhere in between those. So when you talk about the health disparities, when we go to the doctor, we're not being able to be seen as much, where black women are being held in pain longer. We're not being listened to as much. The implicit biases are real. Give you a quick story with maternal mortality. We have several bills about midwifery, and the rate that doulas actually are shown to help address this problem, but you have the chair of the Public Health Committee who has a bias against black women and doulas that says, oh no, we're not moving that to this committee because I want to control that, and I don't believe that doulas should be delivering babies. Just that statement alone shows that she is against black women and doulas. That will never get out, and because she blocks that, how many women have to die?
She threw it to me. I'm just going to be a little bit personal. Recently, I was at a day at the Capitol with an organization I'm part of, and one of the conversations that we had was we took a different angle on reproductive justice and talked about black women and fibroids. And we had a doctor come in, and Dr. Lipman here locally, and he came and talked about why is it so prevalent, and then also why is it that the only answer for black women who suffer from fibroids is a hysterectomy. And what ended up happening was it was because no one takes the time to research about Black women's diseases and health. And one of the biggest things that we can advocate for is more state and federal funding into research on the diseases that are directly impacting our community, specifically Black women. So reproductive justice gets very much a branded label of one thing, but it's actually it's a varied amount of things that all directly impact us. And it's our right to choose, or when to choose, or also it's our right to have proper care and have people investing in that care in a way that's intentional, right? This man, Dr. Lippman, he's going to be an amazing doctor. In that room, there was about 200 Black women. About 10 of them had already gone to him. And each one of them stood up and gave their testimony and said, if it wasn't for Dr. Lippman, I probably wouldn't have been able to have children now. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have known these are the things I actually should be doing. And then one woman said, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have my ovaries. And she was only 30-some years old, and their answer to her fibroid problem was a hysterectomy and complete removal of her ovaries. That's insane, and that's because there's not enough care, and there's not enough attention, and there's not enough dollars being allocated to studying the diseases that directly impact, Black women and Black people in this country.
But I've had authored several bills that have called for chronic disease and studies of diseases that primarily impact African American women and African American people. And those bills would never get hearings. And the way that the system works down there is that when people bring bills or have ideas and we try to get a hearing for a policy, that we know these things impact everybody. Remember, every social determinant of health, whether it's housing, whether it's healthcare, whether it's transportation, all of these things are driven by a policy. So when people say, well, I'm not a politician and I don't want to get involved in politics, everything that you do is fueled by a policy.
Exactly.
So every policy, every social determinant of health is fueled by a political determinant of health. When you bring me an idea and we sit down and research it, and then we put the wording or we put a legislative language behind the issue that you want to see done, we take it then and we try to move it or get a hearing behind it. The way that this works is that you can get a hearing where we'll bring a body of legislators and we move it along once it goes through the system of being heard on the floor in the House or in the Senate, and you have to have a vote to bring it to the general body. What happens in the General Assembly when you're don't have the numbers or you're not in the ruling party in power is that if you can get a hearing, we only get a hearing only with no vote. Now imagine, you've had all these bills that can help a large body of people, but if all they're doing is giving you a hearing, you never get a vote to move your bill to get to the floor where it can be voted on, moved over to the other chamber, and then ultimately get to the governor's desk to sign. So that's why we don't get as many bills out. And a lot of times you'll see we pass a lot of bills, and they may, though, get the other party are taking the bills and they're passing them, which is fine on some levels because the ultimate goal is to make them, if you don't want to pass my bills, I don't mind if you take it, then you work for me.
Right. But it's all doable and possible. I think that's the joke, right?
Yeah.
Because we were just talking about it's a few states who have passed racism as a health issue.
And we have that bill, we've had that bill for 4 years. Racism as a public health issue. We've had reproductive justice as a public health issue. I have HR 836 as reproductive justice to allow that to be put on the ballot so that we make the choice as to what happens with our bodies.
Okay, great. Okay, so this one I want to start with Amanda with number 3, the third question. Give us an example, because you all have gave us examples throughout this, but give us an example of when a policy that centered Black women was implemented and it ended up benefiting everyone, or give an example of a policy that needs to be implemented centering the needs of Black women that would benefit everyone.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we're in the middle of an election season. I work at a national organization. The ARP plan actually centered Black people in a lot of points of those plans, from the energy efficiency into actually there was policy in there. Well, there's money in there for people to help African Americans or Black people to keep their homes. The student debt was directly related to that, which helps mostly Black women because Black women are one of the most educated demographics in this country. They also have the most student debt in this country. So, you know, there's moments where you can say, like, there was a centering of intentional centering of a Black woman, even though they'll say that was a universal broad policy, but it directly benefited us. I think another great one, and you're probably going to talk more about this because she knows this as well, which is Atlanta Wealth Build Fund did In Her Hands, which is this amazing program which took the idea of the UBI, which is a universal benefit income. It gave 30 or 50 or so Black women in the Old Fourth Ward $850 a month, unrestricted. You didn't have to work. You didn't have to do anything. And listening to these women's testimonies was amazing because they were like, I had that $850 a month, and I knew I didn't have to go through no red tape. I didn't have to be drug tested. So I knew there was $850 in a month that could float me this, that could cover this child care bill, because child care is expensive. That could help me with this copay. And my stress went down. I was able to actually get ahead and create a savings in my life. And that's an important benefit. And I think if, you know, and they found the $13 million to fund that program through an assortment of not just state funding, but like some federal funding and some private donors. I think if we looked at those type of economic advantage programs or the UBIs in the world, I think they're doing it in California now, you will see a direct benefit of how it helps a whole community. But you need to be, and it's not radical, you just need to stop being cheap. And stop thinking that you're giving free money, right? This whole idea of labor, you need to work in order to get money or whatever. They've worked to get that $850. They probably pay more taxes because Georgia's tax code is racist. So 9 times out of 10, this lower wage worker has probably paid more taxes than a person who's a millionaire plus. So they've worked to get this money in this universal benefit income. And it should be applied widely, and it should be explored more, applied to, you know, not just Georgia, but across everywhere, especially in our rural counties. I live in Savannah, Georgia. You know, a UBI would be a huge difference in Savannah. We have a 26% poverty level in Savannah, Georgia. And the majority of those people who are suffering from poverty in Savannah are women.
And I'm going to add on to that, and I'm going to show you how the correlation between that and healthcare. So there's a study that has come out on what actually stress does. And stress is the #1 factor that is increase your cardiovascular disease. And we don't realize what stress really, the internal effects of stress. And they correlate that with money. So the program that we're talking about actually does on just a physical reduce the number of stress. Something like that has great significant benefits. If we can just get people and the state to come along, it works. We have proven track record that that type of program works. I know that we're getting ready to start a cohort in College Park. So as we start to expand, we want to make sure that people not only will fight for the benefits, but to understand the health implications behind that. Mm-hmm. So it's about your voice. It's about coming down to the Capitol. Whether you are a physical resident, these are things that are transferable wherever you live. And I tell people that the Capitol, the Georgia Dome, is the people's house. If you're the people, it's time to come home.
Great, thank you. Mm-hmm. And then Ms. Schofield, I want to start with you with this last question. Let's talk about how policy is created. And so the question is, why does it seem like current policy being passed mostly center the needs of one predominant group at the exclusion of everyone else?
Right, and again, I alluded earlier, it's the political power. It's the power structure, it's the squeaky wheel gets all of it's who's making the most noise. We know that it's a numbers game. But even when you have the numbers, there are 99 ways to get things done. It's working across the aisles. It is building collaboration. It's partnership. It is, yes, they are not for you, okay? But I know the word of God said is, if who can be against me? Mm-hmm. So it is working together. The historic racism, the systemic racism is real. The discriminatory practices. Given all of that, we still fight. We still make a concerted effort to come down. You meet with your legislators, you get to know the people that make the decisions, and you work together to get across the finish line.
Amanda?
Oh, there's nothing else to say. That was great. I mean, you know, that on the state level, she knows exactly what she's talking about. It's really the mechanics of the system. It's also that a lot of people don't understand that only state representatives are allowed to present policy and get bills made. So you need to, when she says come to the Capitol and come talk to her, she's absolutely right. You know, the thing that you're thinking about, or like the pothole you want fixed, or you're wondering why I can't do this one thing, you know, go talk to your representative at your council, at your state, and at your federal, because they could probably help you, or at least tell you the historical reason why a thing is the way it is. And we'll also listen to you and say, like, maybe we can come up with a solution and can devise a bill that can solve this problem.
Well, thank you both, ladies. Great job.
Thank you.
I don't think we have, well, I did want you to elaborate, if you can, for as quickly as you can. Why would racism be a health issue? You said some states have passed it. Why would that be a health issue, and why would it be good to do in the state of Georgia?
I brought it up, but you want to talk about your bill. Yeah.
Well, again, if you look at, okay, she said quickly, as number of things that in fact impact race. You know, crime impacts race. Zip codes are the #1 thing that impacts race. Where we have health, wealth, and economics, housing, all of those things determine our quality of life.
Thank you. And I think we have a question.
I wanted to ask, legislatively, is there anything being considered right now that can expand the peach care, or is that part of his neglect? And when I say him, I mean Kemp, to expand any kind of Medicare across the state during this session? Or are they working on that specifically because it's for the benefit of children?
So that is not part of his, it's not part of this one.
Okay.
It's a discussion, but it's a part of the whole package. He's
Okay.
not separating it.
So
right
he's
now.
not, he refuses to separate it,
Yes.
even though that
Yes.
would cover more children, that
Yes.
part of the insurance covers more
Yes.
children. Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Well, thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.